tributes paid to the Comedy Store's original booker Kim Kinnie, the long-serving gatekeeper of the Comedy Store and a spiritual godfather to many stand-ups in the early days of alternative comedy, has died in Scotland in the early hours of this morning. Kinnie started out as a choreographer and stage manager of the Gargoyle Club, the Soho strip club where the Comedy Store began in 1979. Kinnie admitted he wasn't an immediate convert to the new form of entertainment, confessing he first thought, "What is this shit?" but he eventually changed his mind and came to love the comedian's book, The Comedians for the Club. In his book about the history of the Comedy Store, writer William Cook also called Kinnie the venue's unofficial artistic director. Although he'd often greet comics with a cheery, "piss off," every one of them was determined to impress the diminutive Scotsman standing by the desk with a large glass of red in his hand. The biggest accolade a stand-up could receive was Kinnie asking them to get their diary out for some Comedy Store bookings. Speaking to Cook, Patrick Marber, the comedian-turned-playwright, recalled, "There are very few moments in a life where you feel that sort of elation of acceptance and, for me, when Kim phoned up and gave me a booking was one. He just seemed like a wise old bird who'd seen it all, done it all, knew it all and you just wanted him to be." He would also often have a quiet word with comedians, giving them tips on their act. Phil Duputus recalled, "He'd tell you you'd done wrong and that was terrible," and Simon Bly added, "I've seen him be a right bastard, but he won the respect of comics because he so clearly cared about their work, which meant they would take the sometimes harsh criticism." He would also be an enthusiastic supporter of comedians he thought were special and has been credited with seeing early talent in the likes of Jack Dee, Paul Merton, Julian Clary and Mike Myers, with whom he shared a flat at the 1985 Edinburgh Fringe. In his autobiography, Merton wrote, "Kinnie was a great encourager of talent, providing he liked you. Lots of comedians, myself included, benefited from his advice." Kinnie told Cook, "My job was to care about them, the comedians. That's all I did." Kinnie left the Comedy Store in the 1990s, after it moved to its current Piccadilly Circus location, to become a producer for STV in Glasgow. Some say his departure coincided with the venue losing its political edge and becoming a more main club with emphasis on more straightforward observation and gag-based comedy. For Kinnie, he produced the likes of The Funny Farm, which gave Fred Macaulay a break, and Win, Lose or Draw, once making 10 episodes of the Pictionary-style show in one day. The documentary about alternative comedy called Only Joking and a one-off called Scotland's Always Had Talent. Tributes were paid on social media today following the news of his death. Kevin Day tweeted, "Comedy has lost a tiny giant. Spiritual godfather to many comedians, actual godfather to one. Kim Kinnie has left the building. Rip dear man." Kinnie was the godfather of Day's son Ed, who now performs comedy under the name Ed Knight. Comedian and writer Dave Cohen, who was an early member of the Comedy Store Players, said, "To say Kim Kinnie booked the Comedy Store doesn't tell the half of it. He cared for all of us who worked there even when things weren't working out. Especially when things weren't working out." Current Comedy Store player Richard Franchi said, "Kim Kinnie booked, advised and encouraged the new generation of comics at Comedy Store in the 80s and 90s. Rip. We'll raise a glass of red," Fred Macaulay wrote. "Away sad to hear that Kim Kinnie has died. Always of advice, and often encouragement. He was instrumental in this fledgling comedian's career," published the 11th of February 2018.